Hi, welcome to Author's Note.
Don't like, don't listen.
My name is Cas.
And my name is Teese.
Teese.
Cas.
We didn't talk in our last episode about what we watched or read during the week. And then we're now recording this, 3 days after?
Yeah.
2 days after? Something like that.
We're just banging them out this week. Let's go.
That's inappropriate.
Okay. Sorry.
That's too sexual. This is a podcast for children.
Oh, whoopsies. Didn't get that memo.
Have you watched or read or consumed anything tasty and interesting this week?
Yeah, I did. So after I finished reading Interview with the Vampire, the strength of a fifth grader who just discovered how much they enjoy reading took over my body.
No.
And I just started to bang out stuff on my nightstand, which is really exciting for me. So,
again, inappropriate.
Oh, God, Caspian. So yesterday I finished reading up Utsubora, which is a one-shot manga. And it is made by the mangaka who made Classmates, for those who are big into manga and BL. And it is about a author who's out of his prime, plagiarizes a short story from a woman who's a big fan, and then has an affair with her twin sister. And it's like about his editor finding out if he really plagiarized or if she plagiarized. And then it's also about this twin sister doesn't seem like she's actually a twin sister. What's going on? So it's like one of those kind of mystery novels, manga. I really enjoyed the pacing of it. I mean, the ending was so-so. It's what you expect it to be. But I really enjoyed the pacing of it. Like I said, the character movement. And then there's a few sex scenes in it. And oh my God, the art is gorgeous in it. The stylistic choices of the mangaka was really wonderful. Then I picked up, again, my copy of I'm Thinking of Ending Things. So I read about 60 pages of that. So probably after we record today, I'm going to finish it.
Hell yeah.
And then I watched the first season of a series that will not be named because it is for a episode.
Next week's terrible episode that you've trapped us in.
Terrible episode.
I'm actually very excited.
What about you,
Cass?
It'll be fun. What have you read?
You know, there are some things I don't share with the show because some things are just for me, you know?
Okay, that's fair.
So I've been reading my comfort books and I'm trying to think, what else? Oh, I started, so on launch night, I had started watching a stream of not Silent Hill, God, I wish, Resident Evil Village. And I got about more than halfway through, because I got, spoiler, to the part past Moreau. But this was also the player's first time playing it. And this is a network on YouTube. It's called the Survival Horror Network, or SHN. And they put out like really nice no commentary walkthroughs that I really appreciate. Because when I want to watch a game, like for the game, I don't want to listen to somebody else talk over it. Like I want to fully appreciate the game.
Okay.
So they came out then like a few days later with like a full complete walkthrough that's more streamlined. So I picked that back up and started watching that last night because like when I first started watching it too, I was like doing laundry during a lot of like the castle sequence with like Lady Dimitrescu, and I didn't get to appreciate her enough. And I'll be honest, I think I've shared this with you. I have considerably cooled on her, mostly because I am so exhausted of everyone making the "ooh, step on me, mommy milkers" jokes. And I'm just tired. But I enjoyed it. And, you know, like in game, in context, she's really wonderful. She's beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you for the
link.
The warning. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful game. Like the set building is absolutely phenomenal. The environment artist did a stunning job. It is an absolute marvel to behold.
I played for 20 whole minutes. I know what the game looks like. But I do want to get back to it. Yes.
No, are you not gonna, you don't think you're gonna pick it up again?
I want to, but I'm so bad at video games. I will try. I'll probably try like sometime this week or something like that. Maybe I'll bring my PlayStation and plug it into the RV or something when
I wasn't sure if you got scared.
I'm just bad at video game. Literally, the game was like, survive this werewolf attack, and I was like, oh shit. I was not good at it. But I will try again. And maybe I'll go on easy mode. Who knows?
Nothing wrong with easy mode.
I love
easy mode's
mode.
fun. Easy mode's gentle.
Yes. I love
and easy mode can still be challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm not here for the whole, like, if you can't beat it on difficult, then you're not a real gamer.
No.
Shut up.
I'm still
it's
a gamer.
video game.
Listen, baby, I play Tetris so hard. I am a gamer.
Man, like, just talking about that, like, we have a chit chat episode, so we're going to be taking it relatively easy today, but I was in a dungeon with a bunch of people in Final Fantasy XIV, and it was a level 70 dungeon, and it's kind of at the point in the story, so it's like post Stormblood into those patches, if that means anything to any of you. But it's when the dungeons definitely start to get, like, a little more difficult, even if you are appropriately leveled for them. Mm-hmm. And you know, we kept wiping on the final boss because, like, it's a ton of multi-layered mechanics of, like, dodging a bunch of AoEs and stuff. It's Scala. It's the Scala dungeon, if that also means anything to anyone. And everyone was having, like, a really hard time. Two people in the party in particular are having a really hard time dodging stuff. And so we kept wiping because of it. Because, like, if your healer goes down and it's your tank goes down, you're kind of fucked. Like, DPS is a little squishy. But, like, everybody stayed really positive, and I was like, oh, you know, you want to try and do this and try and do that, and everyone was, like, just really receptive to it, which is always really nice, because every now and again you get a stinker, or, like, somebody who gets, like, really offended, or somebody who starts, like, putting other players on the spot, being like, yo, you in particular, you're fucking this up, and, like, that never makes it fun, and at the end of the day, it's just a video game. You just want to have fun.
Exactly. You're all a bunch of nerds playing the same game together.
Exactly.
That's all it is. But Cass, what are we talking about today in this episode?
We decided to have another little chit-chat episode and just take it nice and easy so that we could talk to each other about... We have a loose topic of Fanon versus Canon and what many directions and forms that might take. I think there's something really amazing that can happen in fandom spaces where readings of characters can create representation in a way that maybe wasn't intended or purposefully put into the canonized version.
Okay.
And I think it's really nice that people are so receptive to that and accepting of that and, like, really excited for those readings, it feels like a lot of the time, you know? I think that's a really nice thing that happens where people are like, I think this character is autistic, and the entire fandom is just like, hell yeah. Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
They're autistic.
Yeah. We'd love to hear it.
Fantastic.
I appreciate what a fandom can do to make friendships. I appreciate, but that doesn't really have to do with Fanon versus Canon, so to say. But I appreciate that with the concept of headcanons, because I think headcanons is also important to talk about maybe in this episode, that the power of headcanons can make friends. It can
also ruin friends.
Oh, 100%. And I appreciate that the process of loving something enough to think about it outside of its original text is kind of really beautiful and can be really appreciated. And I know sometimes fandom is bad, but sometimes fandom is good, you know? And I love just the way that people are willing to explore these characters and then breathe life into them, and breathe life into them so much that it actually becomes a part of their legitimate canon. Like Sonic the Hedgehog liking chili dogs.
Or, you know, like Greg Ellis's bit character in Pirates of the Caribbean getting a name.
Yeah. Like that.
You didn't think we could get away with not mentioning that, did you?
I should have. I didn't even think about it. I should have known. I should have known. But you know what does drive me crazy though in Fanon, though, I must say, when there is something, a piece of information is just given as like a random bone throw, and it becomes the whole entire character's personality. I could think of a handful of characters that's just like offhanded, like this character likes aliens, and now like every piece of art and fan fiction and cosplay is just somebody slapping on an alien patch onto their bag.
Or more than that, like the character has an alien patch and like never has ever talked about aliens, but everyone's like, they hunt cryptids for a living. And it's like, well, sure.
Do they? They play high school volleyball. I don't think so.
This isn't about Haikyuu. It's not about Haikyuu.
It actually was, but yeah, one of the characters in like a character profile mentions that he likes aliens, and it was over. It was fucking over.
It's funny how that happens too, where like a character will like have a very rich, verbose backstory and like a lot of material for people to work with, but like for one reason or another, a fandom will just latch onto like one very tiny facet of them.
Yeah, I get that. And like, I even do that with my own OCs sometimes, I feel like. But also, I'm the only person who cares about this character. So I feel like with your OCs, it's different. But when it becomes so ingrained into a character's name, it feels, into a character's being, it feels a little weird sometimes. But also like, sometimes so heavily agreed upon headcanon can be useful in some ways, I feel like, because then that kind of helps settle a common ground. But then if you hate it, you're screwed, because good luck trying to find anything that doesn't have that piece of information in it, you know?
Well, I mean, in like fandoms, right, that are split about characterization, where I feel like there are, I think a lot of what I'm going to be reaching for is like Dragon Age here, because Dragon Age creates a very interesting conundrum with its characters and its stories, because it is largely like choose your own adventure. And so in like Inquisition in particular, there's a character named Cole whose actual like existence is a little bit in question of like whether he is a human or whether he is a spirit by the end of the game. And like depending on the choices you choose to make. So like the characterizations of him in both of those forms can be like wildly different, because the events leading up to that and involving that choice, you know, create like a lot of different conflict and character relationship dynamics. So like you sometimes just get this like really weird split in a fandom where it's like, and even outside of Dragon Age, where it's like totally clear cut and like defined who the character is in the source material, where, you know, this character is one way, but half of the fandom decides no, they're going to be, you know, like really overzealous and over performative, and the other half of the fandom is like, I think that's a ruse to cover for this, and so I'd actually like to play up this aspect of them more. It's really fascinating to see like what people gravitate towards in characters. And I do think a lot of that too also depends on like, you know, who are the popular artists and writers in that fandom, because they are largely going to be the ones popularizing those ideas. You know?
It's like, you know how maps are drawn in a certain scale that makes certain countries look bigger versus certain countries look smaller. It's like the same idea with characterization. We pick and choose as people who take on and internalize this media. We pick and choose what aspects we want to magnify to the point where it becomes part that we consider it fact. And I mean, there are tons of series that I'm like, is this canon or Fanon? Like, I don't even remember half the time. And it's really, it can be frustrating sometimes, because I'm just like furiously Googling and I'm like, what is the truth, you know? And
I forget what series that happened to me with, but I was reading, I think it happened with True Blood, actually. When I was much younger, I actually read the Charlene Harris books for the Sookie Stackhouse series. And I was concurrently at the same time also reading fan fiction. And like, this was at a point in my life where I could tear through books, just like I could tear through like a 600 to 700 page book in a day.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
The hyperfixation hits.
Oh my God.
And like, I'm not like a speed reader or anything. I wasn't skimming. Like I'm sitting there consciously reading the book, but like, I do remember getting to a point where I was like, wait, was what I read and I'm remembering fan fiction, or was that canonized in the book? Which creates like a fun little thing in your brain where you're like, wait, hold on. I got lost. I can't find my way back to the road.
I feel that. And like, I think I don't really I read fan fiction often, but I kind of take a very long time in between choosing what series I want to read fan fiction for.
Yeah.
So I like go in stints, and sometimes those stints last 2 to 3 years, depending on when and like a lot of stuff that I do care about doesn't really have a popular fandom to begin with.
Yeah.
So I have to pick and choose what I consume in order to get fan fiction content.
Mm-hmm.
And I always, while preparing for this episode, I say as if we actually like did anything more than me sitting at my desk and like writing notes to myself in my app. I think the biggest example for that for me was Homestuck, oddly enough.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I know, okay, like they're all 13-year-olds, like you're not supposed to be reading sex, but also like I was a high schooler at the time, so whatever. But whenever I think about Fanon, I think about how with Homestuck, this whole entire setup for how troll sex would function was really common. And it was like a mix of like a tentacle and a cloaca. And at the time I was like, okay, yeah, this makes perfect sense, I guess. And like, I remember people drawing diagrams and people like talking about how it would work in a situation of like pregnancy and anatomy and stuff like that. And I just like took it at face value. But like, why did I, like and it was so heavily accepted by other people who are also into it that you're just like, wow, okay, I guess this is how it is. And like, how often, like, it's so, I don't know where I was going with this. Maybe I just want to talk about troll sex, but.
Well, but, right, that also paves an avenue of introduction in that fandom space for, like, kink discourse, you know? For good or bad. And, like, you acknowledge that you were a high schooler reading this, right? And, like, teenagers and children, like, we can acknowledge that are naturally going to be curious about sex. And, like, there is nothing inherently wrong with that. And fandom spaces aren't evil or bad for having discussions about sex, but it's, a question of, like, are you practicing best practices and saying, like, hey, minors, please don't interact kind of deal. And trying to keep that away from minors or, like, boldly shoving it in their face. But I can imagine in the Homestuck fandom, if that was, like, very front and center, which, like, that became the problem with the My Little Pony fan base, right? With the bronies, was that, like, all of the sexual content was so front facing and so accessible that, like, you are then, like, basically to participate in the fandom having to engage with that aspect of the content in a lot of ways.
And like for Homestuck, it wasn't like Homestuck was big enough and vast enough that
it's massive fandom.
Oh my god, we're gonna have to do a Homestuck episode one day. We're
gonna have to do a Homestuck series. Please.
Definitely.
Please don't kid yourself.
No, definitely. Fuck it. Teese reads Homestuck 2021.
Oh god, that's your whole year, bud.
that would literally be me for months reading that. That would be my "you're wrong about OJ" case. But
Sarah Marshall rising from the earth.
God, love her. Love your work, Sarah Marshall.
We're at the Bronco chase.
But check out "You're Wrong About" if you enjoy good journalism and good investigation. But with Homestuck though, it was something that like it wasn't like front and center. However, if you did want to read actual fan fiction where the trolls were trolls and they like weren't human AUs or whatever, you had to sit through that. And in turn, it's like you're already bringing forward this culture of like the monster fuck or whatever. And was that a good idea for everybody to latch onto this just because a handful of people thought it was a good idea? And I mean, that's just all Fanon, is it not? Being like, okay, we all like this idea, we're gonna take this now at face value, but maybe we should be exploring other things in different ways, Well,
and I think there always are people who are exploring things in different ways. It's just like what rises to the top is normally what is like what's popularized, and like what's largely accepted. And sometimes that can be really frustrating because like popular fandom discourse might heartily disagree with what you find to be your own perception. You know, I feel like that happened a lot with the Fire Emblem Three Houses fandom.
Yeah.
Where there was like, I mean, there's always a lot of discourse within that fandom, but like, you know, in the rise of more puritanical thinking, right? You have people who are like, if you like or engage with this character in any way, that is a clear distinction of what you as a human being believe. And it's like, that's not how that works. But now that's gotten very muddied. Well, right, too, and like everyone arguing the ethics of like each house, and it's like, hey, hate to tell you this, but they're all war criminals.
And I mean, like, I did my time in the Voltron fandom. I one day.
Each week you construct your own prison.
I really do. Like, I reveal so much information about myself and all of my receipts on here. Whoever's writing my call-out post, you're welcome. But
chop chop.
Please don't. But I feel like not Homestuck. I feel like Voltron was a really good example of when does Fanon and Canon become too far? Because yeah. Like I remember when it was confirmed that a character, so when Lance was confirmed Cuban, I was very emotional because I'm Cuban and it's really hard to, I don't know, it's like very rarely, only recently have I been slowly seeing characters that have been like confirmed Cuban, and because I don't really have a lot of experience surrounding my father and culture and stuff like that, I tend to end up latching on to moments where I'm like, damn, this is Cuba to me. And like, I know it's not in theory, obviously, like I'm never going to be like, this media is my culture, but like, it feels good to see something that I can connect to in some odd way on a different level than just, oh, I like the show. Oh, I like the series, you know?
Yeah.
Like, when you go to Lestalem in Final Fantasy 15, how like, that's technically based off of Havana, just like the design of it. And it like made me really happy when I learned that, you know? And
I never knew that.
Yeah,
thank you for telling me that.
Yeah. And like I remember once it was confirmed that Lance was Cuban.
Que pasa, as he salsas to the counter.
As he salsas to his boyfriend. And like, it's like enough, you know, like you can't, like, okay, we get it. Like, he speaks Spanish, he probably does. But it's so, like, it's not your personality. Like, people forget a word in a second language or even their native language. Like, sometimes, like, and I'm not even a fluid Spanish or Italian speaker, but sometimes, like, a word in Italian or a word in Spanish will pop up in my head before it will in English. And, like, that's normal. But for it to be, like, so peppered and taken into a fan fiction, it almost feels a little embarrassing in a way. And when does something that feels embarrassing become a part of the fanon? I feel like because howdy,
because it's like it always feels like those little moments or those like aspects of character which aren't, trying to think of how I want to say this, those aspects of character which are not readily present in all of their actions but do inform them in more subtle ways, right? That there are always going to be like bad faith or unintentionally bad faith players who like come in and like capitalize on those moments and like make that the entire character. And like a lot of times it seems like they are not people who share that characteristic with the character or who are not familiar with those experiences, you know? It was like, I mean, like when Blacktober blew up and white artists decided to get in on it, and it's like, this isn't for you. Sit down. Stop it. Retweet other people.
And I think when people also take over character aspects and morph themselves around characters and like make their personality a character could also become dangerous because it's like, yeah, you look to this character, but are you really just emulating this character, or are you emulating certain aspects of a
caricature
or a fandom culture as well, you know? Like, I don't know.
Well, that gets into a whole discussion, right, on like kinning and like
and this isn't a kin episode. This is kind of like off topic, I guess, but
no, but I mean it's relevant, you know.
Sometimes we take Fanon so closely into consideration that we make it a part of ourselves just as much as we make it a part of the characters. I feel like.
Well, and that's not uncommon, right? Like they've done studies where they have found that like people will naturally emulate the actions and especially expressions of characters in a book as they're reading until they're made aware of it, where like they would put a mirror in front of them and like have them read that, and then like people became self-conscious about it. But you unwittingly do these things, you adopt things into, you know, your verbal lexicon, your physical lexicon, and like that's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with like seeing something you really love in a character and wanting to be more like them, because like that can be a really amazing tool, you know, to like better yourself as a person, or, you know, as long as you're doing it in like a healthy and productive way. But then like, you know, I think there definitely is the argument to be made, right, about like when fandom has, I don't want to say bastardized, but, and polluted is also a very strong word, has changed a character in such a way that they are almost an entirely new and different character, right? Yeah. And then you begin to emulate more of that. And I think like that can get into some dangerous territory, because then like your closeness with the perception of other people unwittingly is a lot, the barrier's a lot thinner there, right? And like, I think that's one of the issues that crops up, where it's like people start to criticize a character and other people take it really, really personally. And it's like, well, hold on, you know, like check your distance. Like, are you okay here? Like, why are you getting upset? You know, is it because this person is like objectively wrong? Which like, when it comes to opinions, especially about characters.
We also like whoopify characters so often sometimes into something that they're not, which is, I guess, a part of fanon culture and fandom culture in a way. Because like there have been so many characters. Loki. Where people are like, I love
Kylo Ren.
And like they obsess over them and they're like, wow, Kylo Ren does work at a flower shop. And I'm like, he's a murderer.
Like, I mean, Rey is too, and so is Finn, and so is Poe. Like,
they're all murderers, and they all work at a flower shop together. But like, we sometimes, just because we want it, like because we like a character, doesn't mean that they have to be a certain personality. Like, it's okay to like a villain, and I feel like a lot of times people in fandom spaces will be like, "But no, I can heal him." No, you can't.
I can make him worse, and that's what I love about
it's okay. We don't have to lie to ourselves to make a character likable. You could just like a bastard and like a bastard. It's okay. I promise you.
The things you like and enjoy are not a direct indictment of like who you are as a human being. And if like you are spending time with people who are trying to convince you otherwise, leave. Kindly leave. Like there are some things, right, like political ideologies, whatnot, but like when you are reading a book, a fiction book, or you are watching a TV show, and you're like, I think Joffrey Baratheon is a fascinating character, and that doesn't mean that you think that everything that Joffrey does is like is good. I like Joffrey Griffith Berserk. Cam. You know how fucked up Griffith Berserk is?
For real. God.
When I think about, I don't mean to dunk on people who love Supernatural. Like, if you love Supernatural, chase your bliss. Don't try and convince me that it's queer representation. I'm talking specifically about Dean and Cass, but, like, chase your bliss. Enjoy the show. It's campy, it's stupid, it's fun. Like, love it. But I think a lot about that one Tumblr post where somebody like zoomed in on Jensen Ackles' eyes and his pupils were dilating or something. And they were like, oh my God, Jensen trained himself. This is real attraction he has towards Misha. You can tell because his pupils dilate, which is what happens when you see somebody that you're really attracted to. And it's like, stop.
Enough.
Stop.
It's okay. I guess that's a good thing that's a good final topic to talk about maybe, is that we don't have to see queerness in every single series that we consume, and that's okay. I feel like a lot of fandom spaces inherently exist due to a ship or multiple ships, and it's okay. You can watch a series and not ship anybody in it.
Yeah, or
you don't have to pretend that these characters are in love and psychoanalyze every single scene. Like, sometimes
it's okay if you do, but also...
Yeah.
Can I raise another point?
Yes.
I feel like there is a circuit of fandom, depending on the show, and just like a circuit of queer culture in general that has really maybe embraced too hard the shaming of being attracted to men or shaming of finding any sort of appeal in like heterosexual ships, and like that's gross. Stop it. You're not helping.
Sometimes het ships are good. I'm sorry.
Sometimes a man and a woman together are both queer individuals, and they're not evil for it. I think that again we've seen this sort of turning of the tide in fandom again, and like it'll continue to happen. You know, time, as with all things, moves in cycles, and so like there has been like a really sort of punch down nature on sex and sexuality and queerness in fandom, which is really frustrating and disappointing and scary for a lot of far wider reaching reasons. But you know, I think the best way to handle it, right, is to just like curate your own fan space with your friends, and like you will enjoy yourself infinitely more.
I don't share any headcanons about real life characters except to like 2 people.
Yeah.
My friends are my echo chamber where I loudly shout things and they just
it's a delicious little secret.
I love to share shit with friends, but only my friends.
And there's nothing wrong with like sharing on the internet, right? But it's like, I think it's about, you know, like distance and care and like how close am I to this? Am I going to get upset if somebody contradicts me? Because I think one of my favorite things to see in this whole like fanon versus canon thing is like headcanons and then people responding with like headcanons that like are maybe in direct contradiction to, but in a kind and respectful way, and saying like, what about this instead?
I want the tiger poster. If we get married, if we move in, can we get a tiger poster? I think that'd be really fun.
A tiger poster?
You know the tiger poster from Zoo Books?
Yeah.
Let's get a tiger poster.
Okay.
From Zoo Books.
Teese, I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
What is one of your favorite headcanons? What fandom is it for? And what is the, you know, either canon reality or canon source for that headcanon? Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I don't have an answer.
The first one that I thought of was I'm gonna go with 2. Okay. So, and they're both Final Fantasy 15. So they're accessible to you, Matisse.
Thank you.
So I really love, in like the canonical storyline of Final Fantasy 15, right? Prompto is like he's the fat chubby kid.
Yeah.
He's adorable, but you know, he ends up developing some really disordered eating, and because he's got to be thin and he's got to be a twink. He loses a ton of weight and becomes like this rail thin young adult. But I really like explorations of his character where he didn't develop that disordered eating and didn't develop any of those complexes and just like stayed fat and was also fit during all of that. And I think those are just really sweet explorations that I really appreciate, because I think I've only ever seen them done in like really good faith and with like a lot of care and understanding. Also trans Ignis supremacy.
That's good. That's good. Those are both really good, actually. Good taste.
Thank you.
I
know.
think that Prompto should be that, and I think it's bullshit that he wasn't at least a little chubby. It's okay if characters aren't always twinks. Just saying. But also, if they're not cute and they're not twinkish, people won't care about them. But
it is also nice, like, right in the post-year time skip, that you do see at least, like, it's not a lot, but, like, his face has filled out more and, like, rounded out, because, like, he's clearly not restricting his eating like he was, you know?
Yeah. You know what I do love? When creators will just make up their own headcanons or, like, AUs for their own characters.
Yes.
I think that's really fun.
I think that's delightful.
There's a webcomic that I really, really enjoy, and one couple was like pretty canon and on their way to being canon the last time I was reading it. And then they'll just draw ship art of two completely other those characters with different people, and I love that for them.
That's fantastic.
I love
That's
that.
wonderful.
I love that. I love
I love J.K. Rowling's stupid little headcanon that Dumbledore is gay.
Wait, I love the one that there's no shitting in Hogwarts. And
what a terrible thing. Yeah, wizards didn't use the toilet. They just shit and pissed themselves and magicked it away. That's it. That's the best headcanon ever. Imagine being like the one young wizard who can't master that though. And like, you're like, yeah. And they're like, okay, everybody shit your pants. And you do. And they're like, oh God, Harry, come on. Harry, come on. He's like, I can't do it. Hogwarts, my professor forced me to shit myself and I can't clean it up. Oh
my God.
Just getting some water here.
Who would just even think that's a good idea? Yeah, I shit my pants. Love to shit my pants. That's one of those things
that like...
Gonna magic it away.
That's one of those things.
That's when you
respect if you like introduced it as like a joking concept, but the fact that she tweeted it just like bold-faced, 100% owning it, like Joe, why was this necessary? Why was this relevant?
Why was this what you were
thinking about today?
We've seen toilets in the Harry Potter universe before. I guess that's another thing. Sometimes when a fandom reclaims a piece of information and just rewrites it, like I think Miss Goromi Yakuza is a really good example of that, actually. Goromi was originally, so in the first Yakuza game, Majima, there's a mechanic called Majima Everywhere, where Majima finds you and fights you. And I may have gotten that wrong. I'm so sorry to other Yakuza fans if you're listening and I said that wrong or whatever. But it's a mechanic in game, and Majima will be in random places in random costumes where you could just kind of find him and it'll trigger a fight sequence with him. And one of those is Majima dressing as a woman and very seductively, and like he's wearing...
is this the one where he's in like the pink dress?
Yeah, the pink snakeskin dress and blonde hair, stuff like that, and is introduced as Goromi. And it was originally kind of just like a transphobic cross-dressing joke. And over time, the fandom has taken Goromi as their own and I've read some beautiful fan fiction about Goromi and gender and just the relationship that aspect of Majima introduces into the relationship with Kiryu and stuff like that. And I think sometimes a fandom can reclaim something for good, and that's one of them. That's it. I like the headcanon that Goromi was not malicious and that Majima was just having a Goromi day and just saw Kiryu and was like, square up, bitch. That's my headcanon now. But I think I do think sometimes a fandom can do something good with fanon.
I think they can.
Now that I've recovered from that poopist joke,
let us know what some of your favorite headcanons are. Just like tweet at us or email us. Just tell them. We want to hear them. Contextualize them so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, don't just be like, somebody like, I love when Jester does this thing. I'm like, who? Never consumed Critical Role in my life. Think I know anything about Critical Role? No. You know?
Maybe somebody wants to tell us their favorite headcanon about a historical jester.
That's me. I'm a historical jester.
Well, you're not dead yet.
Don't have to be dead to make history, baby.
You will, though.
Thank you.
I will end you.
Cas and Teese finally meet up again after a year plus.
Yeah, we met in person.
We've met in person multiple times. I've hung out with you multiple times, but post-pandemic, post-Panini.
Horatio will end you. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this more relaxed chit-chat episode. Maybe you sat down with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and enjoyed us. That's cool. That's wonderful. It was wonderful having you here. Maybe consider sharing the show with a friend or leaving us a review on wherever you get your podcasts. Because that means so much to us, and it helps other people find the show. And if other people can find the show, then other people can enjoy it and have the same experience with it that you did, which is really, really magical. Author's Note fandom. Don't do it. Don't. I will not abide a fandom.
It'd be kind of funny, though.
I will not abide a fandom.
If I see fan art of myself, I will lose my gourd. And not in a good way.
If you want to reach out to us or get any of our contact information, we're pretty much everywhere on the internet at Authors Note Pod. We do have an email that's authorsnotepod@gmail.com. And any other information you're seeking out about us, you can find on authorsnotepod.com. There's also information there to pitch an episode if you are interested in being a guest. My name is Cas, and you can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet at Valhethella. That's VALHETHELLA Teese. If people want to find more of you, where can they get you at?
You could find me on Twitter under Vicuña. That's VICUNAD. I am also a part of the Down by the Sea zine, where you could find information about that at gumroad.com/sideshow pub. I will continue to be promoting this for the next 2 months because pre-orders are open for the next 2 months. So give it a pre-order. There's a lot of cool stuff and a lot of cool artists and a lot of my friends.
It's a maritime horror zine.
Yeah, it's a maritime horror zine, and I talk about mysterious amulets and theater kids, which is pretty fun. Our theme music was done by James Yaiullo. You could find him on Bandcamp under James Y. And Cass, who did our cover art?
Our cover art was done by the wonderful Nyaliest. You can find more of her on Twitter under Nyaliest. It's NYALLIEST. Until next time, stay safe, wear your masks, get your vaccines, go get a donut from Krispy Kreme, and just chill out. Bye.
Bye.